I'm Dorothy Mullen. This little video series is called Dying Dar's Way, Radically Real Spiels on the End of Life. I have been racking my brains for years trying to figure out how to help people avoid unnecessary pain and suffering. I even made a nonprofit organization called the Suppers Programs that was dedicated to this idea that if we could use our own bodies as a data source, we could avoid a lot of unnecessary suffering and a lot of unnecessary treatment. I find it very troubling that so many things are lucrative about making people sick and then giving them the idea that we do these other things that are also very expensive to make people well again. Some obvious examples are the informed consent, which I call uninformed consent. Somehow, as a culture, we have all sleepwalked into accepting and signing off on uninformed consent, but it says at the top of the page that it's informed consent, which makes absolutely no sense because you're asked to sign off on that you don't have adverse reactions to things that you've never heard of and can't spell. So how else are we sleepwalking? I think one of the things that we're doing that I see causing a lot of unnecessary pain is we're misdiagnosing in very lucrative ways. So in our organization, we say, use your body as your own data source and see if you can figure out what's really going on with you. So many of the things that we present with in our doctor's offices are really non-specific, like fatigue, depression, anxiety, pain, malaise. Well, that goes along with 15 or 20 or 100 different things, but if you just go and you get a treatment or a medication for the symptom, what's going on with the process where the depression, the fatigue, the anxiety, or the malaise were like a symptom telling you that something's going on? In my case, the big problem for over 30 years was mercury poisoning or mercury exposure. That's just mine. I don't want to really focus on that heavy metal, but the environment and the food supply, the water supply are loaded with these exposures. And in a general sense, we experience a lot of medical problems and we get a lot of diagnoses that relate to some form of toxicity. Well, what does it feel like when you're toxic? Well, I'm going to share something from the Suppers Programs. It's on our website. We actually trademarked the phrase, how you feel is data, because when you're not getting your answers, or if you don't want to just medicate the depression away or medicate the anxiety away, if you really want to find out what's underlying everything, you really need to start collecting some of your own data, because no doctor or nurse or registered dietitian is going to be there living inside your body feeling what's going on that provides really important clues. So mercury or other heavy metals or some of the crap that we pick up from the plastics and so forth can make you really fatigued. It can make you, a lot of these things are neurotoxins and endocrine disruptors, so they can make you feel sort of even crazy. They can give you really strange fuzzy feelings in your head and make you feel like you're mentally ill or at least terribly confused. So a lot of the symptoms are mental because they're brain symptoms. These things are often neurotoxins. In terms of what it feels like at a physical level, it could be fatigue again. It could be that you just feel sick all of the time and can't really explain why. That was certainly my situation for years and years. I just felt sick all of the time, but we never did the kind of lab work that would pinpoint what was actually wrong, what was underneath all of it. In this day and age, and particularly with our children, there are ridiculous amounts of allergies and asthmas and these inflammatory conditions and problems with the airway. Those weren't all there before. These are we just didn't have children on inhalables, and we weren't taking in steroids and so forth. I mean, it's just ridiculous the amount of that kind of stuff that we have. And yet, when you're living in a body that's accumulating these toxins, you could have allergies and asthmas while you continue to get the exposures from the environment. And like, what are you going to do? You're just going to make the symptom go away by spraying something in your airway? Then what else is going to happen to your body as you continue to accumulate these toxins? It could go into digestive distress. A lot of people who have these environmental exposures end up with what's called a leaky gut. We could probably do 10 more videos on what it feels like to have a leaky gut, but you could have constipation or you could have diarrhea. Are you just going to take meds to make the constipation or the diarrhea go away? Don't you want to know what lies underneath? Why do you shouldn't have constipation and diarrhea. Those aren't good for you and they're not normal. And they're also really important data about what's going on in your body. So digestive misery, intolerance of certain foods, becoming more comfort seeking, maybe looking for comfort in alcohol, looking for comfort in carbohydrate foods, baked goods and candy and popcorn and pasta and so forth. These are the tip-offs that there's some general problem that's bigger than the depression or anxiety, that's bigger than the constipation and the diarrhea, that's bigger than the whatever it is, the ADD and the ADHD in the children, or the sort of the confusion or malaise or lack of energy in the adults. It's something. Just keep on looking to your body for more data. Some people are going to end up in psychiatric care or some kind of a talk therapist's office, and maybe you really do need some kind of counseling. Maybe you do need marriage and family counseling, but there's also the possibility that the things that are making you miserable are not just coming from your relationships or your circumstances or because your boss or your spouse is such an idiot. Some of it comes from the physical terrain, the greater likelihood that you're going to feel depressed or anxious or have a shorter trigger and think, he's such an idiot. Well, he might be an idiot. But it could also be that you're just triggerable because you live in a body that's so agitated all the time from all of these environmental things that are going on outside your body and the environmental things that are going on inside your body in terms of the gut organisms and so forth, the things that lead to leaky gut. So when I think about people's mood swings or unhappiness, I'm not just seeing whatever the words are that they say, the adjectives they use to describe themselves. I'm seeing data. I'm seeing clues. And if I see people who have asthma or allergies or digestive problems, really anything combined with digestive problems is a tip-off. It is a serious clue that something not good is going on in there. It's not just physical and emotional. Sometimes the tip-offs are behavioral. A person could look like they're really lazy. Do they want to be lazy? Is there a benefit to being lazy? Or is that just a side effect of the fact that, or go along with the fact that they just don't feel very well, that they may have a bioaccumulation of these toxins and so forth from the environment that slow us down and constipate us and make us miserable. Some people will go into a really agitated state. And while we might call it anxiety, we might also just call it really hyper or overproductive. Some people's adrenal glands are just always pounding out those adrenal stress hormones. Well, maybe they're really charged up and enthusiastic about what they feel like doing or what gives them meaning and purpose. Like me, I'm pretty charged up when I'm in touch with my sense of meaning and purpose. But it could also be that that drive comes from the physical and the mental and the emotional inability to just sit still, because your body is not the terrain on which stillness can happen. So there are a few other things, particularly related to our relationships with food, because food is how so many of us end up comforting ourselves. It's legal, it's ubiquitous, it's cheap, it's more socially acceptable than some of the drugs. We believe that it's okay. It's American as apple pie, loaded with wheat, dairy, and sugar, and things that can make some people anxious and depressed. But if you don't know that the problem is in the pie, you would blame whatever, who's ever standing there, whoever the next idiot is in your life, for the fact that your physical terrain is affecting your emotional terrain. And it works the other way too, but that you're using food for self-comforting. So I hope the takeaway message is that if you're not happy, if you're uncomfortable, if you experience depression and anxiety in the presence of a life that's really okay, if you have digestive distress and you're whatever, farting and hiccuping and just miserable all the time, it isn't just what it is. It isn't what they call it on the labels of the medications that you buy in order to fix it. And it's not just whatever it says on the prescription pad or the diagnosis notes from your medical practitioner. It is really important data, and you can use the signals from your very own body and your own ideation to figure out for yourself how to reduce or eliminate unnecessary pain.